Aloha everyone, welcome to the Maunalua series. I'm Manuel Mejia with the Nature Conservancy of Hawaii, and which supports great community groups like Malama Maunalua to do great conservation work on the ground. This show is the first of a three-part series on the major challenges that face Maunalua Bay and what the community out there is doing to make things much better in the ocean and up on the land. Our future shows will also talk about restoring a healthy and productive fishery in the bay, and the last show will talk about reducing the sediment and storm water that is polluting the bay. But for this show is about community action and the community rolling up their sleeves to address the invasive alien algae problem that is choking out the reefs and other actions that the community out there is really doing to improve the bay's health. I'm joined here today by a wonderful panel from the Maunalua community. Auntie Karen and Uncle Kini Gleason, born and raised and grew up paddling in the bay, fishing, spending a lot of time, very knowledgeable about the waters in Maunalua Bay. And Kimo Franklin, born and raised in Niu Valley. He works as the program manager for Malama Maunalua and is dedicated to helping restore the overall health of the Maunalua region, both Mauka and Makai. So Kimo, let's get started. For those that don't know exactly where the Maunalua region is, please set the record straight on this map and orient us.
Thanks, Manuel. Yes, Maunalua Bay is located between Diamond Head and Coco Head on the southeastern tip of Oahu.
Okay. And can you tell us more about Malama Maunalua, this community organization, and what you guys do?
Yeah, Malama Maunalua is a community-based nonprofit organization dedicated to restoring the health of Maunalua Bay. It consists of just a few staff members and really a great bunch of dedicated and talented volunteers and community members. Malama Maunalua's mission is to conserve and restore a healthy and productive Maunalua Bay through community kuleana. And Malama Maunalua's vision is a Maunalua Bay where marine life is abundant, the water is clean and clear, and the people take kuleana or responsibility in caring for the bay. Malama Maunalua can be reached at their website, which is www.malamamaunalua.org.
Thank you, Kimo. Auntie Karen, since you were born and grew up right on the bay, can you describe for us how that was like growing up in Maunalua Bay, how it used to be? What was the health of the bay when you were growing up?
Well, I was born in the early 40s and was raised right there on Pico Drive, and my earliest memories are a bay with abundant fish, crabs, lobster, just about everything you can imagine. The waters were relatively clear. There was some mud in some areas. It was murky, but there was very clear water where the springs came through, and down at the end of the bay where there was better circulation, the water was very clear, and this, I think, helped provide for this abundance. During the 40s, Mr. Pico was still alive, and his ahupa'a went all the way out to the reef. He had signs up, and it was private fishing, and he regulated very tightly the fishing in the bay. He had a Pico fishing hui, which the neighbors belonged to, and outsiders were not allowed to fish within the bay unless they came in with one of the neighbors who was a member of the hui. He also had a list. He even listed how many fish or crabs or lobster you could catch per day. So he set a good precedent for limiting the outtake from the bay, which of course left the bay plentiful with plenty. In my father's belongings, I did find a document with the rules and regulations of the hui, and I also found a list of what the people could catch, so that was very interesting. I was born soon enough that I was able to participate in probably the last hukilau within the bay before Mr. Pico died. Upon his death, the hui stayed together for a while, but eventually it phased out. Now, there was such an abundance that even into the 50s and 60s, there was still lots of fish. The lay netters were out there laying nets. The men with throw nets were using their throw nets. There were glass bottom boxes that they were using to find octopus. The divers came in with strings of fish. So the abundance was there for a long time. I always thought of Pico as country, and what happened was when the residential development started to spread eastward out into the valleys and out to Hawaii Kai, the bay began to change.
Great. Thank you, Auntie Karen, for sharing those memories growing up. So we know that the bay used to be abundant and healthy, but today it's a far cry from how it used to be. Uncle Kini, what do you think is the most significant factor that led to the decline of the bay's health?
I think the concrete channel streams that are located in the Hahioni, Kulio, and Neal valleys pose a potential harmful negative effect to the bay. The purpose of these channel streams is to divert volumes of water and mud and debris away from the residential area. Unfortunately, everything that enters the culvert, because there's no filtration process, also enters the bay. Now in 1987, there was a New Year's Eve storm, and I can remember at 4 o'clock in the evening looking up into the mountains and seeing this black, dense clouds up there, hearing the thunder, and just thinking that something is big happening up in the valleys. And sure enough, at midnight, there were reports that these 3 channel streams had already dumped hundreds of gallons of water, hundreds of pounds of mud and debris and pollutants into the bay, causing this massive overload. Also in 1987, when you look about that period of time, the health of the bay was already in a fragile state. So this storm actually pushed the health of the bay past the tipping point. And again, after the storm, there was an alien invasive mudweed that started to really spread rapidly because there was a new layer of debris, sediment on the bottom of the bay. And between 1987 and 2010, it had already covered approximately 20 plus acres of just the Pico portion of the bay. Wow. And that's an area between, if you look at the Kulio, there's some stakes running out there on the Pico side of Kulio Park, the Neal Peninsula. And if you look from the beach 200 yards out and you picture a carpet of that thick mudweed, you see that the bay was struggling. So when you go back to the 40s and 50s and you hear Karen describe a bay with clear water and abundance of fish, and you look at the bay today, you see a bay that is struggling.
It's overrun. So what we're talking about, it's overrun by this invasive alien algae called Avrinvillia amadelpha, or leather mudweed. So Kimo, can you tell us, the scientists reported it first in the 80s, but limu is generally good to have on your reefs, right? But what is so bad about this particular mudweed?
Yeah, well, this is an invasive algae, and as Uncle Kini was mentioning, this thing just came in there and formed a thick mat, a carpet over that whole area out there, all those acres off Pico. It's kind of spread throughout Maunalua Bay, but the heaviest concentration was found right there off Pico, and it just chokes everything out. It holds a lot of sediment and pollutants that wash down from Mauka, depletes oxygen, so a lot of the native habitat, the fish, the native limu just can't survive in that, but the invasive algae seems to thrive in it. So it's just a really big change for the worse out there. Nobody was coming out to use Pico anymore. If they did, if you walked in it to go out surfing or to go fishing, it was just the nastiest stuff to have to walk through. I mean, it looked beautiful above the water, but if you were actually in that water walking in that stuff, it wasn't pretty.
So what did the community do about it, and how did all this community effort get started and snowball into this large, great community-based effort?
Yeah, so actually even before the Pico effort started, there was a there was an effort with Michelle Kapana Baird, who's an instructor at Kaiser High School, and Kim Payton. They worked off with the Kaiser High School students off the boat ramp area off Maunalua or Hawaii Kai. You know, it was several years before, as I say, this PICO effort started. So I think, you know, with that, some of the community members saw that. They maybe even participated in it, and eventually they took that concept back to PICO. And it was just, you know, a couple of people really, you know, as far as I know. One person that comes to mind was Donna Lippman, who was a PICO resident. She was out there pulling, you know, by herself or with just one or two others, and they were really the pioneers at PICO. And Donna at one time even carved a peace sign in the invasive algae, so that was kind of something to see. So it just kind of, you know, blossomed out slowly. From there, people started to take notice of that, and a few additional people started to come out. That's kind of when I kind of stepped in and saw it and got involved. And then Malama Maunalua came and finally was able to get a permit from DLNR, so we were able to ramp up the effort a little bit there. We had support in the beginning from Eric Coe, who was with the Nature Conservancy at that time. A Division of Aquatic Resources lent really big support in the opening months of us starting to do that. So, you know, eventually it just kind of grew, 6, 12 people. Before we knew it, we were having 20 people come out, 30 people, and even more. And it was just an amazing transition, and it happened so fast. It became quite popular. We had groups, schools, community groups, civic organizations coming out.
I have to ask Auntie Karen and Uncle Kini, when all these volunteers first started coming out to your neighborhood, did you think they were crazy and that they were going to make any difference at all?
When I found out it was going to be a manual process, I thought no way this was going to get done. But as the process evolved and they got better at doing what they were doing, I noticed the community coming out and really responding to what they were doing. So we were pleasantly surprised.
I just never dreamt that it would be possible to get rid of the mudweed and give the bay a second chance for life.
Here you can see in the photo, if you turn back one photo, you can see the cleared area that the community volunteer groups first started with Malama Maunalua, and later, when we get back after this public service announcement, we're going to talk about the process by which this was scaled up and how the community really ramped this up. So I want to thank you, Auntie Karen and Uncle Kini, for joining us and sharing your mana'o with us today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, where are the fish? If we want more fish, let's start by following the rules.
No lay nets ever in Maunalua Bay. Make sure you meet the size minimums. And make sure you know when the closed seasons are for each species.
It's the law.
Plus, it's cool.
Malama Maunalua.
For the future.
For the bay. For life.
Okay, we're back, and we're going to talk about the power of community action in Maunalua Bay. We are now joined by Luke Estes of Pono Pacific, a environmental conservation and management company, and Tegan Hammond, an avid ocean lover and the program manager for Malama Maunalua. Tegan, I want to ask you about the Great Huki. Huki meaning, of course, to pull, and great and for everyone to get pulled together for a common good. And you've been mobilizing and overseeing a lot of volunteers for these cleanup events. How does it work? Can you walk us through a typical Huki event?
Sure. So we brought a couple of photos to walk you guys through it. But essentially what we do is we gather the group together on the beach. And we give them a safety orientation and welcoming. We do pule. And then once everybody has an idea of what we're pulling, we give them examples of the native and invasive algae. And we buoy off an area that is like 95% choked with the mudweed that we're after. Everybody gets tubbies and gloves. There's onion bags, and it's really just pulled out by hand, one handful at a time. That's really the best way we found to get it off of the rocks and out of the sand. And it goes into onion bags. From the onion bags, they go into a kayak. The kayak takes the bags to shore, and from shore, we load them into the truck, and the truck takes them up to the local farm where it's turned into an enriching compost.
Great, thank you, Tegan. And Luke, I want to ask you, how did this small community effort spark this large federally funded project?
Well, Malama Maunalua had proven the need, they'd proven the concept, and they had proven that the community supported what they were doing and the importance of it. In 2008, 2009, they were able to team up with the Nature Conservancy and develop a concept, develop a game plan, and put together a grant to the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. And in 2009, they were granted a sum of money to put this into action. We at Pono Pacific were fortunate enough to be selected as a contractor to carry this out. In a nutshell, we basically scaled up what they were already doing. We had dedicated crew members 5 days a week. Ended up being 14 months of work out there. And with the support of the community, support of Malama Maunalua and TNC, we were very successful. And at the end of the day, we ended up clearing 3 million pounds of the algae, and which worked out to about 26 acres of the reef outside of Paiko. We created about 75 jobs over the 14-month period. So it was kind of a successful, across the board.
Great. I have to say, Luke, Pono Pacific really hit this out of the ballpark, and the governor recognized and declared May 10th as Pono Pacific Day because of the great work you guys did out there. So congratulations to you and your crew.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little more about the day-to-day operations and the challenges that your crew faced, and more importantly, how were you guys received by the community?
Mm-hmm. Well, something like this had never been done before at this scale. So we were fortunate to have Kimo and Tegan and the other volunteers to kind of, they created the blueprint for us. So we just scaled it up. Our method was the same. Everything had to be pulled by hand. Mechanical equipment, could create more problems than solve problems, I guess. Everything was pulled by hand. Everything was bagged, carried back to shore on kayaks, and hauled from. We had a loading spot at Paiko and a loading spot at Niuiki Circle, and from there it all went up to various farmers, community groups, and different people that wanted the algae as an amendment to their soils for their farming operations. But at the end of the day, I think there are three big things that made this a success. One was the crew, and our project managers, Jerry Ko Kano and Lei Liang, did a tremendous job keeping our crew inspired, motivated, through the cold days and the hot days. The crew was great. They many of them were really passionate about what they were doing, looked at this as an opportunity to give back. The second thing was the team, with the Nature Conservancy and Malama Maunalua. We had the scientific aspect and we had the community aspect to the project, and it made our job a lot easier, because we had that kind of support. But really, it was the community. It was the Paiko residents, Uncle Kini, Auntie Karen. They're from the very beginning. They're supportive. In the very beginning, we did meet a lot of the residents, and there was some skepticism whether it's even possible because it had never been tried. But throughout the project, I think we got their support. We proved that it could be done, and we did things like rake the beach and things like that. And at the end of the day, I think it worked out great.
Thank you, Luke. Tegan, I want to ask you. This is back-breaking work, hard on the back. Can you tell me why this activity is so popular with the community volunteer groups, and how did you mobilize all of them?
Sure. So yeah, I think first of all, it's actually really fun. You don't expect it, but you get out there and you connect with your community and you connect with the ocean in a way that's really special, and you can see the areas clearing as you're working. And I think it just spread through word of mouth from our small groups that Kimo had started to mobilize, and we had an email that Kimo kept and just kept people aware, and slowly the numbers grew, and our groups turned into regularly like 30 to 40 people. And then we had schools calling in, and they were interested in bringing their classes out, which was great because it was a fantastic living classroom for them to be out there and find things in the mudweed, and they found the most amazing things and the most amazing critters, and very curious. And we had groups calling, like businesses, local businesses, Hawaiian Airlines, Duke's, Bank of Hawaii. They were all really interested in the team building, also just the give back aspect of it. And the community side progressed the whole time through our great Huki. This picture that's on right now is of our largest group Huki ever. We had about 16,000 pounds come out that day, and everybody was just volunteer from the community. And you really see how much people care deeply about the place. And
that's
just took off from there.
Great. I can't imagine a better way to spend a nice Saturday morning
That's right,
at the ocean. So I want to ask Luke and Kimo about the sheer volume of material. I mean, 3 million pounds. Wow, that's a lot of sediment and algae material. Where did it all go, and what did you guys do with it?
Well, we actually kept it right in the community. Most of it, not an ounce of it went to a landfill. We never had to do that. We were able to take this invasive algae to a lot of the Maunalua farmers. We were able to take it into Kamilanui Valley to Aloha Aina o Kamilanui, who was very generous in allowing us some space to compost algae up there, which we're still doing to this day with the community pools. Erotsuji, farmer at the base of Cocoa Head, used a lot of this algae, tons of this algae, plowed it into his soil, grew some beautiful vegetables and produce with it. Glenn Ni'i's another one up in Kamilanui who helped us in the beginning, Kokua Kalihi Valley. They were one of the first to actually take algae from us. Urban Garden Center out in Pearl City. So it was a tremendous thing to be able to do that.
And because of these relationships that Kimo had, he was able to help us actually save money, with keeping it right there rather than having to haul it out to different landfills or Kapolei or whatever, and it actually let us put more money into the ocean to really remove more. So it worked out great.
Yeah. It was a nice demonstration of Mauka Makai, Ahupua'a, and just showing that Mauka Makai connection to the community.
Well, you guys certainly closed the loop. I remember what Uncle Kini was saying, all that sediment you guys took back to the farms. So that's a great way to close it. Well, thank you very much, Luke. For the next segment, stay tuned. Right after this brief public service announcement, we're going to learn what is going to happen next after this ARRA-funded project is wrapped up. So there's still a lot of work to do. Stay tuned.
Hey, where are the fish? If we want more fish, let's start by following the rules.
No lay nets ever in Maunalua Bay. Make sure you meet the size minimums, and make sure you know when the closed seasons are for each species.
It's the law.
Plus, it's cool.
Malama Maunalua.
For the future.
For the bay. For life.
Okay, we're back. We heard all the great accomplishments in terms of clearing the reef in Maunalua Bay, daylighting the reef and re-exposing it back to sunlight and clean water. And we know that is just the beginning. It also has raised a lot of questions about restoration of native species. So we're very fortunate. We're joined by a young bright scientist from Hawaii Pacific University, Amelia Murphy, who is studying seagrass in the bay. Welcome, Amelia.
Oh, thank you.
Can you tell us about seagrass and why it's important for a coral reef ecosystem?
Yes, well, seagrass beds often go unnoticed, but just like coral reefs, they support a lot of biodiversity. Here in Hawaii, we only have one endemic seagrass species called Halophila hawaiiana, and this rare seagrass supports many different types of fish, sea turtles, and invertebrates like crabs and sea snails. Seagrasses also help to stabilize the sediment, which reduces coastal erosion, and they absorb large amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, a lot in the same way as land plants do.
Can you tell us about your project and what you hope to learn from it that hopefully the community can apply as well?
Yes, well, in Maunalua Bay, there used to be large beds of Halophila hawaiiana, but after the mudweed invasion, many of these seagrass beds were wiped out. And it'll be difficult for this seagrass to expand from its surviving patches and recolonize the rest of the bay because it's a very slowly reproducing species. So for my thesis project, I'm experimenting with different methods for transplanting the seagrass into cleared areas of the bay. And through my research, I want to learn if active restoration of seagrass is possible in the bay, and if so, what the most effective methods might be for accomplishing this. And hopefully my findings can be used for future larger scale restoration efforts.
Great. Thank you, Amelia. I know Mother Nature can use all the help she can get. I know the community has put a lot of investment and effort into clearing. And it took 30 years to get to that really poor condition, and it won't recover overnight. But Kimo and Tegan, what are some of the early signs of recovery that you're seeing out there? You know, what are the scientists saying and that are monitoring it, and what do you see when you're out in the water?
Well, some of the things we're hearing are that the residents are seeing things they haven't seen before in many years. So like the eagle rays are coming back in, lots of fish feeding in that area, birds feeding in that area. And recent studies that we've finalized is that the sediment is moving out of the areas that have been cleared much faster than in the areas where the mudweed has not been cleared, which is positive for all of the marine life there.
Great. What else needs to be done to ensure the success that you've been seeing?
Well, we'll continue. We're actually developing a new monitoring maintenance management program for the area. It's extremely important that the community stay involved. You know, a big investment was made with the Great Huki and the removal of that 26 plus acres. So it's essential that the community move forward and continue to maintain that area. So we do have a new monitoring and maintenance program being developed, which we'll continue with in the months and years to come. We'll continue to have Hukis out there once a month, and smaller groups of community members will also go out there and work on maintenance and monitoring.
Great. Well, that wraps up our show. Thank you very much. I want to thank each and every one of you. And big mahalos, especially to the community in Maunalua and Paiko Drive, and to all our partners, NOAA, Malama Maunalua, TNC. Please stay tuned. We do have a second and third series coming up that'll explain what Malama Maunalua is doing on the land as well to expand the restoration efforts and speed up the recovery of the bay, and also about increasing the fish. So for more information, you can go to www.malamamaunalua.org.